Hi everyone, welcome back to the Factory broadcast series. My name is Arjen Swank and I'm one of the consultants at Factory and also your host for this annual, already for the second year, monthly webinar series. Every month we invite inspiring guests from around the world to help us make sense of what's happening in the HR world, but also in the business community around us. And at Factory, we're a specialist in employee listening, in the field of feedback. So we're hearing what your employees are saying, and we're trying to make sense of that in the boardrooms to guide your decision making, to guide your strategic development, to help you perform better as an organization. And from that, we also know a lot of different experts that have an idea about what definitely influences this decision making as well, and also influences your performance as a company. And these experts last year have shared with us on topics of performance management, on engagement, on employee experience, but also some fun stuff on team performance, on focusing in your work, and of course about technical unemployment, something that for me was a total new era in this fourth industrial revolution that, the CHRO of LeasePlan talked about. All these recordings you can view back on our Factory channel, and you can see these recordings on our YouTube, but also request them through the Factory site. Last episode, we spoke with Martin Barner of Novartis Sandoz, the big pharmaceutical company, who shared with us the on-boss principle and the way of guiding Novartis into a people-centric culture. Now, this episode, we're going to have a very special guest, but especially also a topic that really enthusiasms me in terms of, having a really big impact in my life. And it's not because it's something that has to do with my health or something that I've been challenged with for a long time, but it's something that I started off with already playing around with as a kid. Because who didn't play with Lego? And these tiny Lego blocks, I learned over time, have a lot of influence in terms of, your building, your creativity, the fun part that you can play around with. But now that I'm a father of a kid, that can also help you in playing around and see your kids' creativity come to life. Now, of course, in a global brand like Lego, such a well-known brand, there's of course a very firm and thorough HR strategy, something that's been lasting for years. The company is already around for almost 100 years, and you must have a very clear idea, a very clear vision statement, a mission, an idea of where you want to bring the company and how you want to bring it forward. Now, in HR, they've started on a modernization journey, and that's the topic that we're going to talk about today. Our guest, Mr. Thomas Liebach, will talk about the future of work, how to create the future of work for Lego, and what the HR modernization journey has been since the start a few years ago, and how he, as a director, has guided this process with the HR specialists, but also in the business. In the next 45 minutes, Thomas will share his best practices, his pitfalls, his findings, his learnings, but also some very practical tips on how you can embark on that same journey when you want to go through a modernization in your company. And whether this starts in HR or whether this starts in the business, these tips are applicable across the organization. If you want to view back the recording, just a small note, you will receive the recording link in your email when you've registered. If you haven't registered yet, do so via the Factory website and we'll keep you up to date on our monthly webinars. Also, you will receive a little link to find more information about employee listening and of course about Factory. So without further ado, Thomas, welcome. I'm very happy that you're here.
Thank you very much, Arjen. I think you put up the expectations pretty high.
As I'm supposed to. So we're very happy that you're going to share your story about this journey. I can imagine not everybody knows you by heart, although you've been speaking about this at quite a few conferences. We've met personally in these as well. But maybe just as a quick introduction, maybe tell a little bit about yourself and also what your day-to-day life looks like.
If we start with what my day-to-day life looks like, I have 3 kids, and in Denmark, at least until just this week, they were all homeschooling. So it's been really the past, and I must be humble because other countries are much more restricted than Denmark. But the past 8 weeks before Christmas until now has been trying to do a little bit of work, homeschooling the youngest, and trying to keep up with everything. So it's talk about work-life balance. There is none in that respect. But aside from that, you can say I have this probably a little bit fluffy title of Process Innovation Director. And what is that actually? And at Lego, which I joined about 2 years ago now, it was a new position. And it's basically to be a little bit an advocate for our different stakeholders, our different employee groups, and ensuring that we are delivering HR processes that really adds value and are less complicated and less cumbersome to actually work with. So really, you can say it's the usual buzzword of employee experience, but it is really trying to get to a point where we provide a consumer-grade experience to our employee groups.
And when you joined 2 years ago, what was your first assignment? Did they tell you that you were going to go help Lego into this whole modernization journey, or?
Yeah, you can say when I joined, you can say the direction was already set. So we are very fortunate both about being a family-owned company and also be making, thank God, good return on our investments, and that enables us to work with, you can say, strategy cycles of 2, 3, or 4 years. And it was decided back in 2018, I believe, to go on this modernization journey as part of a larger strategy. I'll return to that a little bit later.
Super. I think you're going to further introduce Lego as a company as well in your presentation, which to me was astounding how big you have grown from my tiny idea of being a kid and those tiny Lego blocks to actually the size that you've grown to right now with global presence, production, of course, retail, etc., all included. A very hybrid, multi-layered company in that sense. Maybe you can just share a bit of the last months for Lego, just before we dive into that. How have these Corona times impacted the business, or maybe not at all?
I think it has impacted the business tremendously. If we start from the inside and out, our factory closed down in China in early 2020. Was closed for a few months. In Europe, US, we closed down our offices in mid of March. Went more or less completely virtual with all salaried employees. Our factories were kept, or the remaining factories were kept online and working. Then we went into, just before summer holidays, a close down of our factory in Mexico due to Corona again. At that time, the Chinese factory opened up. So it has been really about adjusting. And then you say, in some countries, offices are opening up earlier, shops are opening up earlier. So I have colleagues in China, in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, who are, you can say, more or less back to normal, or as normal as they can get, still with the restrictions that, of course, they have. And then we have countries like the UK, like also the Netherlands, really still in a tight crunch and a tight lockdown. So that's from the inside out. In terms of what that then brought to our consumers was a huge demand. I must say we are really humble about the demand for Lego, not just from kids, but from families and adults. So we've grown double digits on our top line in 2020 on the plans that we had before COVID hit us. So it has really been a tremendous year, but also exhausting because we've had to sort of try to adjust and keep up with deliverables, both in new products, internal projects, and so forth at the same time. And I think looking back at 2020, the first 3 months after we sort of high level closed down in March and through June, there was this, okay, we're getting through this. This is short term. There's still excitement. We did some surveys, and the motivation and satisfaction was pretty high. I mean, it jumped 8 percentage points from March to April. which was quite astounding. And it was like, okay, we pull this together and let's work it. Then came summer, and people were easing up, and we're a little bit looking forward to coming back to a normal. But then you can say in September, October again, it started hitting us, and we can see from the surveys that we did in those months that the motivation and satisfaction is dipping. And we start in the comments that we're getting from our colleagues is that it's wearing on them. So the initial very clear statements from leaders and from our executive leadership team was, you need to take care of yourself, you take care of your family and your the people that depends on you, and let it slip a little bit with the actual work. But as we came into third, fourth quarter of last year, it was more or less saying, okay, Corona is the new normal. We just need to accept that we are working virtually, and I expect more or less the same deliverables that you were used to in a pre-COVID world, right? And that's sort of a little bit the dilemma that we are in right now, that we have to deliver and we have to turn around a lot of things really fast and do it virtually, which is a challenge.
And as a parent, as I can definitely also tell you, it's not easy to deliver double digits if you're bound at home with kids crawling around. So I can imagine for some of you, the stretch was a bit further than just a few months. But yeah, you definitely experience what it's like to be both a teacher and a parent and an employee at the same time.
Indeed. And I can only hope, as we just talked about before we started off here, I really do look forward to being able to travel and visit my colleagues and actually meeting face to face. I get a lot of energy and a lot of inspiration from my colleagues when I meet them face to face, and I'm really missing that.
Yeah, can imagine. Well, I'm not going to take you any further because your story is too interesting to also talk about COVID too much. Let's not overshadow what we're actually here for. So please, take us along in this journey. For anyone in the audience, if you want to leave a comment, a question, an idea, something to share with us or with Thomas or with me, of course, please do leave it in the comment box down below. And we'll try to answer it straight here in the show, or otherwise we're going to answer to it at a later stage. So please do send in your questions or ideas, and we're more than happy to discuss them here as well. Yeah, okay, Thomas, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'll just be talking a little bit, a few slides on what Lego is, just to set the context, and then dive into what is the ambition with our HR strategy, and how is that playing out in the modernization journey that we have embarked on for about a year and a half now, and that hopefully will bring to fruition later this year. So let's see here. So Lego, as I said, it's family-owned, fourth generation. We're founded back in 32, so we are approaching 100 years, and we've got some big ambitions for what we want to achieve in 2032. Last year, we were awarded both the #1 toy company and also #1 reputable brand, which we were really proud about. We are present and selling in more than 130 countries, and at our last count, we were close to 19,000 employees. And then we have an additional, you can say, large contingent workforce of about, at any given time, between 3,000 and 5,000 people, working half in our production facilities, helping our regular staff produce Lego, and then the rest in development in our digital business as well. We are present in 4 hubs. Aside from our headquarters in Billund, we have a large contingent of people in London, in the US, in Connecticut, in Singapore, and also in Shanghai. We're beefing up our operations in Shanghai because we really see this as one of our key growth markets. We have 5 production facilities aside from Denmark. We have Czech Republic and Hungary, as I said, Mexico, and then Jiaxing in China. And to many, we also have our own branded retail stores, so both franchise stores, but also we operate and run our own stores, and there's about 570 of that, and we aim to open up 100, I believe, this year as well. So it is really a tremendous growth rate that we are having on this. But I'd like to take a little bit back to just set the specific context of where it is we came from. So if we go back about 15 years, Lego was really in dire straits and in serious crisis. They had been betting on a lot of things, and were getting slow in actually delivering on new products. We were taking 2-3 years of coming out with new products, and we were being overtaken by some of our competitors. We were betting on you can say the wrong player ideas, and had become too fat in how we organized, and we were losing a ton of money, and we were close to going bankrupt back at that time. So we started going a little bit outsourcing, then insourcing, divesting Legoland parks and so forth, and we managed, or the former management actually managed to turn around the business and started on a 10-year period of really unprecedented growth rate, double-digit growth. All of the money that we were earning were invested in new products, in partnerships, in channels to market. And at the same time, we sort of started formalizing a little bit an idea of how HR should work. And at that time, it was really with a really small core, central HR, and then it was embedded into the business. That lasted for 10 years, and then in 17 and 18, we were hit again by slowdown in our growth. We changed CEO, so Jørgen Vig was promoted to become chairman of the board. We got Niels Bjørn on board, and we got a new chief people officer. So Lauren Schuster, who's our current chief people officer, came in from a position in Lego as head of sales and marketing as well. So he changed internal position, and we did some layoffs, simplification of the processes and our organization. And that brought us to a position end of 18-19 where we laid out a new plan. So what was the strategy going to be for Lego towards 2022? And that, of course, also led into a strategy for people operations and development, which is our HR name, about what is it that we should achieve, which is very much about technology. It's very much about how we can actually use technology and leverage that even further than what we had. And then we also started revisiting our delivery model. You can say in the 10 years up to 2019, as I said, all of the money went into new products, more or less. And that meant that all internal systems were neglected. And there was a big, you can say, demand at that time, 2 years ago, to really start investing in our internal infrastructure. And that sort of, you can say, sparked our modernization journey. So last year we selected and started working with Deloitte and Workday to take Workday to Lego and embed that in all of our processes. So everything from recruitment, onboarding, through master data, merit, and so forth. All of that we wanted to move into Workday and create sort of the basis for a new ecosystem. And we started out with, you can say, semi-sprints. Personas developments, localization requirements, and so forth. And then all of a sudden in March, we were under lockdown, and that meant that the phase approach that we had going live in early this year, actually with parts of it, and then next year with more, was actually put in and collapsed into just one go live, which is going to be a global go live for end of this year. And if I just focus a little bit back on what is it that we're actually part of. So the overall Lego strategy is really about our portfolio, about our channels and our geographical expansion, and then the whole point about enablers. So creating a whole new IT roadmap, investment in new processes that concerns employees, customers, suppliers, and our consumers, of course, as well. And we're working on a lot of different things. So Workday is one of them. Eventually, that will hopefully lead to a leaning out and hopefully decommissioning of SAP. We are moving much more into reporting and analytics with this year. We also, at the same time, doing payroll consolidation and outsourcing in 20 plus countries. We're having master data consolidation, and then we're starting to look at time and attendance as well. So we have a whole bundle of things that we're actually looking into right now. And behind all of that is really the ambition that we have in POND. It is to drive, you can say, our pinnacle KPIs through the architecture of our leadership, working with culture, ensuring that we have the right talent and the right organization at the Lego Group. And we have some pretty huge ambitions on this piece. We really want to be best in class, both when it comes to how candidate rates us, we want to work for us, and also internally with our employee surveys. We want to ensure that our core capabilities within HR is really at a robust level. We've done a lot of reskilling and upskilling of our staff, and that will continue in the years to come. We also want to be a place where we have both the adequate bench strength in terms of our leadership, but also retain, you can say, key talent. And I think one of the things that we will start focusing really heavily on this year is really the DE&I agenda about ensuring minorities, females, and so forth, really to ensure that we have a good representation. We're starting from a good point, but we have huge ambitions of reaching a 50-50 on our leadership levels. And then you can say the last 3 points are really concerned platforms and processes about moving into more and more robotics, AI, outsourcing to our shared service center, getting our data in place and so forth, and then adopting the cloud-based system. So our modernization journey is not just the platform, the processes, it's also about the people, it's the talent and the culture that we have at Lego. Yeah, this is for those of you who are really interested in how we're trying to build it up. We have some core systems and we are getting a lot of new with Workday. But what we're really aiming at is trying to create the foundation for an ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, it is about realizing that Workday can do a lot of what we want, but it may not be suitable for everything that we want. And that might go into document management, candidate relationship systems, well-being, health. So there might be a lot of other processes or a lot of other solutions out there that we would want to build and to click on to the Workday backbone, if you can say that. As I said, we are already now starting to look into time and attendance. We're also very much looking into workforce planning. And to be fair, we're not mature enough in terms of really talking about proactive workforce planning. It is still very much a financial exercise for us, but we really hope to be able to dial up on this one and become much better at looking at how we compose our workforce going forward. The key drivers really behind all of this, we did some analysis some time ago and really found that our systems and processes were complex, ineffective. We were really very siloed. We did some user analysis as well, and most of our processes came in the very poor end of the scale. So we really had a system. It was working, but it was at nowhere near anything that you would go and find in some of our competitors and some of our what we would normally consider our peers. So really, it was about how can we lift the system, the processes, and the operations. And what we expect as an outcome really on this, that is that we will be able to introduce new practices and be more agile in how we make decisions and how we actually develop and deliver on projects. We also want to achieve a higher degree of simplification of our experience, not just what we are delivering with business partners towards leaders and employees, but also when they call upon our centers of excellence or our shared service, that we try to simplify how we work. And that is, as many of you know, a really daunting task to work with, simply because we have a lot of systems. So Workday will cover parts of it. We have ServiceNow that will cover other parts. SAP will still be around to do some of our travel reporting and so forth. So leaders will still, and employees will still have to navigate through a lot of different systems. So simplification, we aim for it, but we will probably not achieve it this year, nor in 2022. But it's an aim that we have really on providing something that is more consumer grade experience to leaders and to employees. And we had a number of design principles, and those were pretty firm from the beginning. We want to reduce the number of checks and approvals and really trust employees and our managers. We want to make sure that it's more future fit. We get that of course with the cloud system that continuously evolves, and we want to really focus on the employee experience. Once we have that in place, we believe that would provide a tremendous impact in terms of the experience for employees and candidates. We will also be able to lift ourselves in terms of how we engage with the business and business leaderships, how we respond to, and hopefully also in some cases how we can foresee some of the challenges that is in place in terms of getting the right talent at the right time at the right place to drive, you can say, our business productivity. So the modernization ambition, if we just pull it down into three major points, it is really about the consumer grade experience. It is about complete modernizing our IT landscape and providing a transparency and simplification. And it is about how we can deliver a tailored experience and outstanding services through that. And the use of AI and robotics and so forth, it's something that we have on the horizon. Some of it is built into Workday. We will not enable all of it from the beginning, but it's something that we will definitely start exploring much more as we approach 2022, 2023, and onwards. One of the key challenges that we have in doing all of this is we work globally with a very diverse workforce. So out of the 18, close to 19,000 employees that we have, roughly half of them are production employees and hourly. Another quarter is our brand retail stores. And then we have, you can say, the remaining piece are, you can say, creative and the digital workforce that we have in all of our back office. And then, as I said, we have a huge share of contingent workforce through outsourced relationship, through the one-man band, the freelancers and the contractors and so forth. And all of that we ideally want to capture with our modernization journey and address the very diverse, you can say, needs that they have. And of course, being present physically and also with employees in 37 countries, there is a whole lot of local legislation. There's a lot of paper requirements. There's a lot of privacy laws that is abundant in China, or China is in the making of a new data privacy law. India, Russia, Ukraine have some really tough requirements that to some extent prevents the use of a global system and global processes. So there's a whole bunch of things that we are struggling with on reaching those markets and getting the optimal out of our investment. And if we then start looking at what is it that we are then considering from sort of issues or topics that we have, and one of them is quite natural when you move from an old SAP system into a cloud-based system. We also expect employees and managers to do more themselves and to initiate things and to have access to data and not call upon their business partner or shared service all the time. And that whole transition and trying to adopt or getting employees and managers to adopt a new system and new ways of working is something that we are investing heavily in terms of ramping up people to actually help us doing that. We don't have the best of track records on this, but we are quite intent on shifting some of the processes and the roles and responsibilities around. And then the second point is really addressing the I. Where do I start as an employee if I have an HR-related question? We have a ton of different scenarios for how you can start. And if we look at how it's structured today, managers and employees, they have an abundance of opportunities to start an HR process. And we really want to simplify that and make it more transparent. Where is it that you need to go? If you know where to go, or if you know what your problem is, and where do I need to go if I don't know where to go. And that whole thing about the user experience, about making it simple, is something that we're starting to be aided with. So there's a whole bunch of integrations and new experiences coming up. I just read this week that Microsoft, with their Teams integration, is integrating parts of Workday, so you have it present in Teams. I mean, we're using Office 365 globally. Teams has really boomed the usage of it, so it is only natural that you will find some of the HR tasks where you do your most of your daily work. So that whole meshing of things is really interesting. But also complicated to really have an overview about. And then there's the delivery model. When we're shifting things around, what is then handled by our shared services, what is handled by people partners or business partners, what's handled by employees and by managers. That is shifting around. That will, of course, also cause us to reflect and revisit our delivery models. We've also considered a lot of the new talent trends, and there's a lot of discussion going on about upskilling, reskilling, especially in the light of AI and robotics and so forth. But also a lot of discussions over the past years has been on performance ratings and so forth. And we've had tons of discussions internally, but we've also decided to corner them and park some of these discussions, simply because trying to solve the monumental task of how should our performance management system look like at the same time as we're designing, you can say, the platform and the processes, simply became too much of a task and too time consuming in order for us to move ahead. So we parked that, but we are looking into do we need ratings? If we do, for what, and how should it work, and so forth. We're also looking into new compensation considerations, and some of the things that we did last year is really trying to move more money to leaders to actually award on spot bonus or small merit increases on you can say in the specific moment when employees need to be appreciated or considered, and trying to leave much more with employees. With managers. So those are also some of the things that we look into and want to try to explore more. And then there is the very basic approach to people. As Arjen said earlier, we are a very people-based company. We believe in people, believe in ability of our people to grow with the tasks. And some of the concerns that we have from different parts of the organization is really when we're introducing new technology, how much are we going to be data driven versus data informed, and using the data to have, you can say, very constructive dialogues. And we don't want to go to a place where you can say data decides for us. We will at any given time choose to have the dialogue over just relying on data to inform employees or to inform decisions. And that's a very fine line, because looking at some of the great cases out there, there's so much we can do with data, but we just need to be mindful that it is, and in the end, it is people that we're talking about, and data can only inform us to a certain extent. And that is really about being excited, but not being overly excited, and that's at least my challenge personally, to not jump into to create new features and ideas and data and look at how we can improve things, but really have the dialogue as a backbone for how we do things. So if I try to sum up where we are right now, a year and a half into the journey, I think we had a very clear case for change that was linked to our priorities. Our CPO, Lauren, was really and has been really active in supporting it. Our new Chief Digital and Technology Officer is also all aboard. Our new Chief Finance Officer is also on board with this. And that has provided us with great comfort in terms of the certainty and commitment to the project. There has not been a question of, should we do this or not? It has been, okay, we need to do it, and let's get it done. We've had some, as I just illustrated, some uncertainty, some of the key topics. And that has, of course, had an impact on how we redesign our processes and our operating procedure, and that just takes longer time than we anticipated, and it requires more buy-in to get things done. And Lego is a company that is very much built on, as I said, people, but also very much built on consensus. So a lot of people are involved in the processes and in the discussions and the decision making, and that takes more time than sometimes is preferable. But it is just you can say part of our DNA. And then working within the frame, our current IT infrastructure sets its limits, and you can say shifting it to a cloud solution also sets its limits. We cannot do everything, and we don't want to do everything. We came from a spaghetti structure before, and we don't want to replicate that with a new cloud solution. But we have some frames, and that means that the solution that we are producing, if we look at some of the other Workday customers, I mean, it's pretty much the same. We can put different logos on it. We can put different flavors on it. So what is it that really differentiate our processes, our company, how we do things from other companies that are on Workday? And that goes back to the people, about our HR people, our recruiters, how do you actually use the system and work with it and use it to facilitate dialogues. That is, you can say, in my belief, where we need to really put a mark. Then we have had a great deal of transparency and open discussion, and I think we have agreed to disagree, and we've had a pretty good governance structure in place to deal with items and issues where we had disagreement, and that has brought us forward. But it hasn't brought us forward in sometimes in the pace that we really wanted to, and especially going virtual, it's been a challenge. So I believe that was my final slide. I'll be happy to answer any questions and any dialogue that I can, and also please do respect if I say I don't know. There's so much going on at Lego, so I might not know everything.
Cool. Thanks very much, Thomas. Well, I think you've touched upon something which was very relevant for a lot of our audience, because we get a lot of questions actually for you to answer. I'm just going to pick out a few of which I feel they guide your story throughout, from what you described, the start of the Lego journey until where you are now.
Sure.
And one of them, which I feel is very relevant, from Arne, who's asking us, Thomas, can you provide an example of how the HR system infrastructure is expected to influence business priorities and deliverables? And in a second way, similarly, how substantial do you estimate the impact of the HR system infrastructure to be on employee satisfaction? Can you give some examples of how the system functionality drives satisfaction?
Sure. So, I mean, it is pretty obvious. We're doing employee surveys every year, and we have one of the key elements is how satisfied are you with tools and systems and processes at Lego. And I believe, having been with a lot of other companies, that is a question that is asked in many different ways, but more or less comes down to the same question. And we're coming from a mediocre level. I don't think we are totally bad, but we're coming from a mediocre level, and we want to ensure that is being improved. And it is really about ensuring that we provide access to the systems in an intuitive way. And be very specific, one of the things that we're discussing right now, that is how can we provide access to our hourly employees. So we have, as I said, about half of our employee population are either in our production sites or in our brand retail stores. And if we just dial in on our production employees, our colleagues there, they work in environments where they are not allowed to bring their own mobile phones beyond the changing rooms, simply because of privacy and sort of confidentiality on some of our novelties. So how do they access the system? Is it via a kiosk? Is it via we enable their own private device and so forth? And we have made a conscious decision. We want to extend Workday to these employee groups, and we are right now saying, okay, so what is the actual way of doing it? And we are exploring a lot of different opportunities on that piece. But that is really about bringing, you can say, the tools, the access, making it as easy and consumer grade as possible to work with. I think that was the first question, right? I mean, the second was a little bit about how we influence, you can say, business decisions and so forth.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, Yeah, and I think one of the dilemmas that we have right now is we just announced a major transformation of our digital organization. So about 1,000 people will be shifting jobs and going to learn new technologies. We're going much more cloud than what we had done before. And what we're experiencing today is that with the SAP infrastructure that we have, we are simply coming to a halt because we cannot support it with our current infrastructure. We revert to PowerPoints, to macro-enabled Excel sheets when we try to map out. So this person needs to be upskilled in this specific skill, and then needs to move into this new team, and so forth. When we go with Workday, that would become enabled through the you can say through the interface, and we will be able to much easily to see where are people on their growth journey in terms of their development. When are they ready to, you can say, if we look at it as resource, when are they able to be deployed into a new team because they have completed the training? All of that will be automated for us, and we will have a much better overview for managers to make those decisions, where today it is heavily Excel-based.
Wow, cool. Okay, thanks. I'm just going to go through. So another question of Paulo. You mentioned trust as a design principle. How did you enhance trust within the organization? And I feel that this is something that relates to us at a factory as well. We sometimes come across the trust issue where people feel disappointed, or people have a problem with the idea of where does my data go? How do people interact? If everything is systemized, how does this actually work out with us? So how did you enhance this trust level? What did you do to increase this, or to help people feel that it's trustworthy?
Yeah, so you can say that there are a number of aspects to that at Lego. So first of all, we have our DPO, data privacy officer, and since we're working with kids as our consumers, we are really, we're making all the efforts, all the extra precautions to secure data, to make sure people are informed about data, how we store it, what are we storing, and so forth. And you can say consumer experience is also being transferred internally. So what kind of data are we actually collecting? Where are we storing it, and so forth? So that has been a journey that has taken place since GDPR was introduced 2 years ago, and it's really you can say fundamental to us. So in terms of data, I think people, our employees and our leaders have a trust that we only collect what we need, and we keep it safe, and the ones who need to access it has the access, and no one else. But that being said, trust in employees and in managers is really a journey, and we have a separate you can say culture program that's called our leadership playground, where we're working with three, you can say, fundamental values of how you can be focused, how you can be curious, and how you can be brave. And we have rolled that out over the past year and a half, 2 years almost, in all sorts of, first in, you can say, face-to-face workshops, and then now in virtually, and trying to create you can say the safe space for people to talk and to speak up if they have any concerns, and to openly share dialogues and so forth. And I think that sort of that sort of culture is something that is deeply embedded, I think, in the Lego DNA, about trusting people, and really wanting and looking for the best in people.
Cool, thanks. I think what's good to realize, of course, I mean, the corona pandemic has influenced any business across the world. Many organizations, and we're just reminded by a few people as well, that this corona pandemic accelerated digital growth much faster than the majority of organizations would have expected. Your modernization journey was described from a period of 2019 to maybe the next 3-4 years. But can you describe a little bit about how this was speed up, maybe, or how you influenced this? What happened?
Yeah, so I think I would be lying if I said that our modernization journey was being accelerated through COVID. I think in terms of timeline, it was rather you can say delayed, and we're struggling about keeping the timeline on that, simply because the approach to designing workshops, moving from face to face 3 or 4 days in a room trying to design processes to go fully online. It's simply not the same, and it takes more time. And that sort of in terms of the project itself, COVID did not accelerate you can say the progress. Rather, it came in as a curveball, and we had to adapt. I think if we look at it a little bit from the outside in, I think we see that that the adoption of new technology at Lego and the speed with which we go from having long cycles of decision making, analysis, and so forth into actually just doing it has become much faster, and we're seeing projects being going through our stage gate models more or less within months, where it took years before. And so I think we will be, when we are ready, hopefully by end of this year, with the system, we will be able to tap into that already accelerating adoption of new technologies. I mean, Teams has been in a crazy development, the usage of it. I think the whole idea about being agile, not just in terms of IT development, but also in terms of HR, accepting, you can say, minimum viable products. So when it's good enough, has been accelerated. And I think we are looking back a year. I think we have moved on our ability to execute and to really focus and get things done. As a specific example, we had a project in place in our supply chain to do split deliveries. So when people ordered from Amazon, we could deliver directly from our warehouse instead of going through, you can say, another warehouse. And that was a project, I think, that was aimed for 9 months, and we cut that down, and we actually delivered within 3 months. So COVID has really put, you can say, decision making on in the high gear.
So I think there's a few huge benefits from this, working with in a much faster delivery timeline, shorter decision making timelines, working with MVPs instead of like a fully tested product, but actually testing it while working on it. So building the bridge while walking on it, you could say. It turned into a very agile team.
I think that is where we want to go. So once we go live, you can say, with the initial pieces, we want to go into this continuous development mode, and we have a backlog that is just growing by the day. But we need to make sure that we are able to pay out the right salary to everybody before we go live. And I think that is, I mean, stitching the pieces together with payroll, master data, and so forth is what is causing, you can say, parts of our delay.
Yeah. So, the question is, of course, how do you remain agile, right? This is, I mean, in this agile way of working, like COVID could hit us a second or a third or a fourth wave in the next week as well. We don't know yet, right? So, and you're speaking about an end term or like when it's finished, but could it ever be finished? I mean, this process is going on. It's a journey. Maybe the journey itself is already worthwhile being in, while actually, instead of focusing on the end.
Yeah, and I think that is it's a revelation to many in our project, because we always, I mean, we came from a normal stage gate model, at least in HR to a great extent, and people went into the project, the modernization journey here, with having an end stage in mind, and everything needed to be in there when we go live. And I think as we move into this second year, really, we've started to realize, okay, we need to deprioritize things. We need to focus and to take things out of scope. But then it might be out of scope, but it is not completely out of our sight. We will put that into, you can say, the backlog, and then we will start working actively with prioritizing and describing the backlog, and then taking in the pieces that makes the most sense and provides the most value to us, and then deliver that agile.
Wow, cool. So the final question I have, because we're bound on time, and I'm still tempted to ask, because you mentioned you had CFO support, CPO support. I think that there were a few other C-level members that you mentioned which supported this project. You said there wasn't even a guess for them or second guess on why this was needed. Everybody supported it. We went ahead. Now, still with an investment on a monetary level, but also in terms of capacity, time, impact on 18, 19,000 people, there must have been something that you can share on a practical level, like how do you build this buy-in? How do you get people on board for this? And maybe it was your predecessor, and maybe it was a team that started a long time ago, but yeah, how do you build something like this?
I think I need to give a lot of credit to both my own boss and to our CPO, Lauren.
Who are watching this, so thank you very much, everyone.
No, I think a lot of the groundwork was done by Lauren. He's an ex Nokia, ex Google. Then he came into Lego in sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. With a whole different mindset of how you look at things and how you work with data and so forth. And I think he got an epiphany when he came to and opened up, you can say, the box in HR some years back, and is a very, very persuasive guy. And I think he was instrumental in actually getting this in place and putting it on the agenda. Mm-hmm. And then you can say last year we changed the CFO. Jesper's coming from a company that is already working with data, and where what we are reaching with the modernization journey, it's not something spectacular. We are, I think, just getting to par with our peers and other companies. The first release is not going to be something that is, whoa, this is something really, really differentiating us. It's going to be, okay, is that it? For a lot of people, because the expectations are already high. But we have our CEO has some quarterly lunches with people, and I was lucky to be part of one last year. And then when we introduced ourselves and what we were working with, he said, okay, Thomas, so you can't disappoint. And basically he was speaking to, okay, the level that we have today, it is so below his expectations that we simply cannot fail on delivering something new. And I think that is a little bit, okay, I would like to aim a little bit higher than not disappointing. I would like to delight and to create something that really differentiates. But I think we are at a point where some people are just, okay, let's get it out there and let's start using it. And some people have really high expectations, and we will not be able to meet all of them in the first go. And some will definitely be disappointed in what we're coming out with, I'm sure. But what we have is, this is, as you said, this is a journey. It doesn't stop with, you can say, the first go live here, end of this year. It continues as we move along and as we develop.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of all the time that I start a new Lego project. I pick up all these different parts, and it looks great on the floor, but you have no clue what it's going to be like. And then eventually, from these tiny bits and pieces, you get down to a whole zoo or a kindergarten or a spaceship. So once you start piecing them together and start to get in flow, I think this is the moment when everybody sees, wait a minute, this could be something beautiful and nice and impactful. So yeah. I can definitely imagine that you're going through this process in this similar way as well, building while working. Yeah, and slowly you start to see how it starts to build up to something bigger.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, I'm really sorry. It's because of time constraint that I'll have to thank you very much for participating in this broadcast. It's really been, well, a pleasure, but also an honor for me to hear your story. I learned a lot. Again, you're always inspiring in terms of sharing your experiences, of what you experience on a personal level in this whole journey, but also, again, on how impactful this process is for a company like Lego and the total global scope that you're dealing with on a daily basis. So thank you very much for that.
And thank you very much for having me and providing this opportunity to share. I think sometime next year I can come back and say whether or not we can actually have met and delivered all of this. But let's talk on that.
Yeah, it's an open invitation from our side as well. I would be more than happy to hear about where you stand in this journey by that time, and also how some of the feedback is from the users on the local level as well.
Yeah, definitely.
As a follow-up for us, for the audience, thank you very much for joining as well. It's really been a pleasure. This was already the second broadcast of 2021. We've got many really interesting ones to come. We're going to talk about many different, the HR trends that we see happening. And of course, some topics that you can address as well. If you have some tips, ideas, something that you want to share, just reach out and let's have a chat about how you can contribute to our show. Most importantly, for the next time, we're going to have a very inspiring HR trend watcher, Mr. Tom Haak. He's been in our show, one of the first episodes last year, where he predicted the HR trends for 2020. And I have to say, he was quite right. But also, like with anything, if you predict the future, you never know how it's going to be like. And this was especially the case in the year of Corona. Nobody could have predicted how it went. But some of his more general, high-level predictions somewhat came true in terms of the fields of HR and the business outcome. So if you're up for it and if you're happy to join, please do register for our next episode. And we'll see you back on the 11th of March with Mr. Tom Haak. In the meantime, if you have any idea, please do reach out. Or if you want to get inspired with all of our recordings of last year, just check in on effectory.com or our YouTube channel. And if you do share something in the online channels, use the hashtag #FactoryHRLab. And we'll be sure to pick up on it. Thanks very much again. I'm looking forward to see you in a few weeks again, and I wish you all the best.